All right, good day, Canada. Good evening, Asia. It is Thursday, 11 a.m. here in Toronto, and it is time for our webinar on immigration to Canada. My name is Alex Davidson, and our today's topic is the New Brunswick Provincial Nominee Program, which gained significant popularity over the recent months due to pretty much its affordability and openness. So today, I'll try to cover two streams of the New Brunswick program: the stream for professionals and the separate stream for the businessman. Over the rule of years, many applicants they grasp an opportunity to apply under the New Brunswick Provincial Nominee Program and are now in the middle of the immigration process, or they have already been granted the permanent residency in Canada. So let's see how this entire process of immigration to Canada works. First of all, very briefly, I'll try to go through this quickly one by one for those who don't know it yet. The difference between federal and provincial immigration programs to Canada. As you may know, all Canadian immigration programs, they are pretty much divided into the two large categories. Federal programs which work Canada-wide. They are not designed to bring newcomers to specific provinces or territories. So say federal skilled worker, federal skilled trades, Canadian experience class are pretty much the most known examples of the federal immigration programs. If you apply under any of these, you can choose any province and city of Canada to live in, except for the province of Quebec, and I will briefly explain it a bit later. Provincial immigration programs, they work in a different way. They are managed by provincial and territorial immigration authorities, and they are fine-tuned to meet the local requirements. Primarily, I would say demand in certain occupations and in specific underpopulated locations within a province or a territory. So all provincial immigration programs, they involve two stages of processing. First, an applicant submits his or her application to provincial or territorial immigration body, and when this application is approved, the person receives a confirmation from a province. This confirmation is usually called a nomination. After that, with this certificate of nomination, the person could apply to the Federal Immigration Body, Citizenship and Immigration Canada, to receive a permanent resident status in our country. The province of Quebec is different in how its provincial program operates. This province has specific agreement with the federal government, which allows exclusive selection of candidates. So effect of this agreement is that a candidate applying under any federal immigration program cannot choose Quebec as a province of destination. Instead, anyone willing to immigrate to Quebec has to apply under a Quebec provincial immigration program. Otherwise, the immigration program of Quebec works similarly. I would say 99% the same as any other provincial immigration program. Now, when talking about provincial immigration programs, very often we have to answer one and pretty much the same question. I don't want to live in New Brunswick, or I don't want to live in Nova Scotia, or Manitoba, or Alberta, pretty much you name it. People ask us if we can offer another option for them. For example, Ontario Provincial Nominee Program because they want to live in Toronto, or British Columbia PNP because they are desperate to move to Vancouver or they got relatives in there. This is proven by the fact that people do not clearly understand how provincial immigration programs works and what does immigration under provincial program stream means. There is a common misconception that an individual must live in a specific province after immigrating under its respective program of immigration. This is not, however, the case. There is what the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms say about it. Every citizen of Canada and every person who has the status of permanent resident of Canada has the right to move and to take residence in any province. And this is not just words. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is the part of Canadian Constitution. That's the fundamental law of Canada. So you should consider such things as immigration to Canada and living in Canada quite separately. So newcomers do not have an obligation to live in a specific province or a specific territory or a city or a township as soon as the permanent resident status is granted. He or she is free to move absolutely to any place in Canada, no matter which papers you signed before you actually became the permanent resident of Canada. Now, getting closer to the New Brunswick Provincial Nominee Program. The Provincial Nominee Program of New Brunswick, it accelerates the immigration process by providing a certificate of nomination, which can lead to a faster processing of a permanent resident application by Citizenship and Immigration Canada. To receive the nomination, an applicant, he or she has to submit an application under the New Brunswick PNP, and this application, of course, has to be approved. New Brunswick PNP has two major sub-programs or streams, one for the skilled workers and another one for business immigrants. As those names imply, first stream is designed to facilitate immigration of people who will contribute to the Canadian economy by filling a work position. Accountants, bank clerks, engineers, dentists, teachers, programmers, consultants, researchers, all these and hundreds of other occupations are considered to be skilled workers. There are occupations which are not considered skilled, such as cleaners, general laborers, cashiers, waiters. In very simple words, to be a skilled worker, an applicant must have an experience in an occupation that requires some sort of post-secondary education. That's the rule of thumb when you're considering whether the application is skilled or not skilled. Immigration stream, New Brunswick immigration stream for business applicants is designed for the individuals who are willing to establish or purchase a business in New Brunswick and develop it further towards creation of workplaces for Canadians and for permanent residents of Canada. This is how this businessman would contribute to the Canadian economy. Well, similarly to the situation with residing in any city or any town or township and province or territory, newcomers, as soon as the status of permanent residency is granted, they are not required to pursue the career they claimed while immigrating under the New Brunswick PNP. In other words, it means that applicants under the skilled worker stream can establish and grow their own business, and business immigrants, if they want to, they are always welcome to apply for any position and to be hired by any employer anywhere in Canada. Now, skilled worker stream. It has three substreams for different kinds of applicants. One for the applicants having family members in New Brunswick. Another one for the applicants with the offers of employment from employers in New Brunswick. And the last but not least one, the the express entry substream. That's the stream for those who are qualified under the express entry system. And today I will try to focus on express entry substream specifically, simply because we want to show you how you could immigrate using the New Brunswick nomination without support of family, without wasting your money and time on those crooks offering you to sell work position somewhere in New Brunswick, which is of course absolutely illegal. So let's go. New Brunswick Express Entry Substream, officially called NB Express Entry Labor Market Stream. This immigration option is mostly interested for applicants who are overseas, simply because this stream does not assume that an applicant has, as I said, relatives or employer in New Brunswick. This stream functions on an expression of interest model. So candidates may complete an expression of interest form and send it to the New Brunswick Provincial Nominee Program, which receives forms from the 1st to the 15th of every single month. Candidates are assigned a score based on the information provided, after which they are assessed according to the following criteria. Of course, highest score. Second, evidence of training and experience in a high priority sector, which is determined by the province. Third, demonstrated ability to become economically established in the province. And the third, the likelihood of positively contributing to the provincial labor market. The highest ranked candidates are invited to apply to the New Brunswick PNP by email, and applicants who will be nominated will be processed through the federal government Express Entry Electronic Immigration Management System, which aims to process complete applications within 5-6 months of submission. Now, New Brunswick has 3 levels of applicants. Top priority, second priority, third priority. Okay. Now, top priority. That's the people who have connections to the New Brunswick. That are the people who are working in New Brunswick right now. Those who have received post-secondary education credentials from a recognized New Brunswick institution. In simple terms, it means like you were studying at a college or university in New Brunswick. Those relatives living in New Brunswick as permanent residents or citizens, and those residents living there. Those who have worked full-time in New Brunswick for at least 1 year in the last 5 years. I would say that would be the students who have graduated, received their work permit, postgrad work permit, and afterwards worked in the province. Now, those who have a full-time permanent offer of employment, well, from the New Brunswick company, say maybe you were lucky enough to find an employer in the province while being abroad. And the last in this category is those who have their first language French together with the TEF certificate validating their language abilities. Second priority applicants, that's those who have attended the New Brunswick Provincial Nominee Information Session in the past 24 months. And you have to focus on this one specifically. New Brunswick accepts expressions of interest forms from individuals who have attended the New Brunswick Provincial Nominee Information Sessions or met New Brunswick Provincial Nominee at a domestic or international recruitment event. These candidates are considered the second priority applicants. They must demonstrate that they have attended the information session, for example, having registered at the event or communicated with PNP staff at one of the events. And the third priority is pretty much everybody else. Now, talking about those sessions. Don't take it wrong. Being a second priority applicant does not necessarily mean that your turn will come only after all first priority applicants from around the world successfully immigrate. In fact, the New Brunswick processes applicant priority together, I would say in parallel with the ones from the first priority. Your problem starts if you're in the third one, but if you're in the first or the second, consider it being on the safe side. So naturally, preference is given to those with relative employment, of course, but that's just quite a few of them. So second priority applicants, they always process continuously as well. To attend the New Brunswick information session, all you need to do is to monitor the announcement on the official website to know in advance about the upcoming events. Usually that upcoming notice is 1 to 3 months. Read all the provided information carefully. Those events might have some extra criteria. For example, registration may only be allowed for citizens of certain countries or for the candidates with specific occupation. But the fact that those sessions exist simply means for you that if you can jump on a plane and get to Cairo, to Dubai, to Doha, Seoul, Manila, Abu Dhabi, and other cities and towns and places where those sessions are conducted, could virtually mean a golden ticket for you, simply because attending such a session would grant you the place in the second priority application. So at least you could apply and at least you could ask the New Brunswick Provincial Nominee Authorities to process your application in the second priority stream, which means for you that you're right on the way for your golden 600 points in the express entry system. Of course, mind the location. You may need a visa to travel there. Of course, mind the preparation because every session is different, right? Because sometimes they're asking you to have the IELTS certificate to be demonstrated right at the spot. Sometimes you have to have the prepared settlement plan. Could be asked, could be not, right? If you're not sure of how to prepare for that, look, contact us directly. At the end of the presentation, we'll share our contacts and we will discuss with every applicant who's looking to immigrate how to prepare yourself properly. Now, very quickly, rest of the process of the New Brunswick PNP Express Entry Stream. After you return home from the information session, it's just time to create, validate, and activate your Express Entry profile, if you haven't already done so, of course. If your express entry profile is active, you're okay to file your expression of interest application to the New Brunswick. Soon as it receives the positive decision, your next step is to prepare and submit the full application under the New Brunswick PNP. As any other application, it includes a bunch of forms, documents, as well as the processing fee, of course. So positive decision in this application means that you're nominated by the province. And the final part of the process is pretty much straightforward. You already know it probably. Your express entry score source given 600 points awarded for the nomination. And well, the last step is to submit an immigration application to the CIC, and being positively reviewed, selected, and granted your permanent resident status in Canada. So that's the 8 steps which lead you from 1 to 8 towards your permanent residency card. In an essence, I would say that for the New Brunswick Express entry stream, all you would have to remember is somehow you would have to be nominated by the province. In order to be considered for that nomination, the best way to do is either to take the French test, TEF, and in this case, you could get yourself into the first priority, or the easiest one is to attend one of those informational sessions. Prepare yourself, jump on a plane, get to the session, listen to the presentation about New Brunswick, have a chit chat with the officers if you're allowed to do that, and afterwards file your application. That's pretty much the easiest so far and the most straightforward way to get straight to your 600 points for the express entry. Now, business. I promised that I would try to cover very quickly 2 streams today, for the skilled workers and for the business applicants. Okay. In broad terms, the entire process of the business application is very similar to what we explained a couple of minutes ago. First, an application is processed by New Brunswick, then the nomination certificate is issued with these, and with this nomination, an applicant is selected from the express entry pool to submit an application for permanent residency in Canada. In order to be eligible as a business applicant, the candidate must be between 22 and 55 years of age, hold at least a high school diploma, come on, demonstrate an intention to leave and operate a business in New Brunswick, of course, right? An applicant must assume a day-to-day management role in the business, which means that you necessarily have to be a business owner. You could be a business person or working as a hired manager in a business, but it has to be a day-to-day management experience. You have to provide a business plan approved by the New Brunswick government. Of course, you have to have a personal net worth of at least 300,000 Canadian dollars. And you have to, at the stage of their approval, submit a refundable deposit of $75,000 and a signed copy of the deposit agreement prior to nomination. You have to score 50 points on the selection grid, which is virtually nothing. Demonstrate sufficient English or French ability, make at least 1 business trip to New Brunswick, which is, again, pretty much nothing. And you would have to meet a New Brunswick official for the following interview. Now, business plan. Business plan is pretty much a written document which explains how the business will operate and what would this business do in new business. In order to qualify, an applicant must control a minimum percentage of entity or equity in the business equal to or greater than 33%, so 1/3 of that. Applicants are required to take a business trip to the New Brunswick in order to become better acquainted with the province's business environment. The trip has to be a minimum of 5 business days, which means 1 week, right? During the trip, the applicants are required to conduct extensive research. It is recommended that those applicants set up meetings with various business people and officials in New Brunswick. Usually, it's not a difficult part at all, which virtually come in for 1 week to the New Brunswick to meet with the community, to ask them questions about how the business operates, so you get better acquainted with the province itself, right? Put it very simple, guys. I'm relocating to your province. Tell me, please, what it is and how can I wage business in here? So after the business trip, applicants are required to participate in an interview with a New Brunswick official to discuss the findings of the trip. 20-30 minutes discussion. What was all about? Like, how did you go? What do you know about the province of New Brunswick? Was your trip successful? Who did you talk to? Do you think your business would be eventually running smoothly? Do you understand how the taxation system works, etc., etc.? Very, very simple questions which could be asked at pretty much any business interview. The other thing which is assessed on this interview is the ability to speak, listen, and understand English or French. One important point for the New Brunswick business nominee applicants, guys, you do not require to take a test. Not at all. Not IELTS, not TEF, nothing. Your language abilities would be tested by an officer. So if you could communicate in English but do not want to pass the language test, this is your golden chance. So far, this is one of just a few immigration programs which do not require you to sit IELTS test at all. 20-30 minutes talk with a visa officer straight about your business, which is pretty much a topic you should be able to communicate for hours and hours, right? Because that's your business, that's your baby. And voila, that's it. Now, in terms of the cost, in order to be eligible as a business applicant, candidates have to have a personal net worth of at least 300,000 Canadian dollars. It could be savings, it could be investments, liquid assets, it could be real property. The amount is not payable to anyone, that's just your assets. Put it simple, you got a bank account for $100,000, you may have an apartment which is worth $200,000, voila, your assets already are close to or exceed 300,000 Canadian dollars. This amount is what you have to have in order to back you up, just in case, right? It's not something which you would be paying to anybody. Applicants also would have to be prepared to make a business investment of 125,000 Canadian dollars in New Brunswick. That could be done for purchasing a land, purchasing building for the business. It could be moving cost, it could be equipment cost, it could be purchase of manufacturing equipment, office equipment, computers, intellectual property, inventory, etc., etc. So that's the money which you are spending on your own business. Want to be on a safe side? Buy a piece of land. Very easy. Now, in order to guarantee an applicant's intention to operate a business in New Brunswick, the province would ask you to make a deposit of 75,000 Canadian dollars. This deposit is fully refundable, provided that an applicant meets the requirements of the agreement, which means that, as promised, you came in, as promised, you opened your business, right? And you were operating this business for at least 1 year. If you did not do that, if you came to Canada and decided to relocate immediately to Ontario, if you decided not to open business but to be hired, if you decided that you do not want to meet these requirements, well, in this case, the deposit will not be refundable. If you meet the requirements partially, say 50%, you have invested, instead of 125, you invested 65,000. Or there were extraordinary circumstances which did not allow you to run the business smoothly. In that case, you could consider a return of a half of 30,000. Partial return could be discussed with the visa officers. Very important is that if, for whatever reason, an applicant is not granted a permanent residency status in Canada, the deposit, that $75,000, is also returned in full. I can give you a life example. So a person has done pretty much everything smoothly, but he was found criminally inadmissible to Canada. Of course, the deposit has been refunded in full because, well, we do not welcome criminals in our country, but at the same time, this deposit would work only as a way to keep you in the province and to make you run the business, right? There is no intention for the government to charge you $75,000 and afterwards not refund them to you. Now, you see, as I sometimes say, the major purpose of the webinar is not to give you extensive information and cover all the topics and particulars of every single province or every single program, sorry. The idea is to show you that there are lots and lots of programs and immigration streams which could be used by a smart applicant. Come to us, let us assess your chances and speak openly about what could be done for you, right? Discuss your chances, opportunities, pros, cons, and how to approach your particular case properly. You may either come directly to us or you can come to our trusted partners in Bangladesh, Visa Center team. In any case, they would be able to help, and in fact, of course, we'll be glad to support them as well. I really appreciate you for being with me today. Our next webinar would be slightly different. We will talk about immigration for farmers. So if you're planning to come to Canada and establish yourself in farming, it could be a great opportunity for you. I will try to cover a few topics on provincial and federal farming programs, how to approach them, whether you would need or do not need to purchase a farm, how to run a farm and demonstrate your previous experience to qualify under one of those programs. On this topic, I believe we would stop. Thank you for joining in and goodbye.